Hello, my friends. I'm Nathan Liao. The website is watchmanscry.com. I'm not going to be doing this program in video format because we're going to look into the scriptures. So get your Bible, get a pen and paper. We're going to look into the scriptures and see what God has to say about a certain topic that I'm pretty sure a lot of you are familiar with, and it has to do with getting old and laboring through the changes that happen when we get older. You know, folks, over the last few years, I've been watching this phenomena, and it's really becoming more apparent the older I get. Right now, I'm 59. I'm about to be 60 in a few months. And, you know, the Bible does say that God gives us 70 years, which is 70 years. Or if we're strong, he gives us 80 years, fourscore. But for the most part, the years of man are approximately between 70 to 80 years. And then some people can live beyond that. My father-in-law, Allison's father, lived to 93. My father right now is 83, so some people do live longer, but for the most part, the human body seems to have an expiration. And it seems that the closer we get to that expiration, we start noticing a lot of the changes that go along with that expiration. And it has to do with aging and getting rusty. And I hope that as I share this, perhaps some of you will be able to relate because a good portion of the audience is in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and even higher. So you know what I'm talking about. You know, folks, it's really, really interesting that, well, Allison and I, we don't have a TV, so we don't watch TV, but every now and then we'll watch a movie, or maybe we'll go to the movies just to relax. And we went to the movies recently and saw the sequel to the Tom Cruise Top Gun Maverick. You folks familiar with that? He did a sequel, and in the sequel, Tom Cruise, instead of being the hotshot young buck who has all the skills and, of course, is full of pride and arrogance and is a show off, in the sequel, he's older. In a way, he's kind of washed up. He's seen a lot of things in his life. He's seen pain. He has seen regret, and it shows on him. He's older. His body is older. His face is older, and as I was watching that movie a few days ago, Allison and I, we both agreed that as we were watching it, it was messing with us because I hadn't seen him in a while. And then when I saw him in this one, he was a lot older. And they even had a cameo from some of the actors that were in the original Top Gun. Ed Harris, you folks remember him? And then there was Val Kilmer, who was the Iceman in the first one. But since then, Val Kilmer in real life has been enduring illnesses in his throat. He has, I think, throat cancer or some kind of disease in his throat where he can't talk, and he has to use a voice box. So his acting days, I had thought were done, but they used him, and he typed into a computer his words, and then he whispered a few words, but I don't know if they were his. But as I was looking at Val Kilmer, it made me sad, and Allison told me that she got sad, and I could hear it get real quiet in the theater when he was on there because everyone was thinking the same thing. They were thinking about how we get old. I'm sure they were because the theater was full of people my age. They were older. The young ones can't really relate because they didn't grow up with it, but aging is apparent, and it's a battle that all of us have to face. Even the movie superstar has to face it, and the famous people and the rich and the great have to face it. And there's no escape from it because God told us. He says that our years are going to be 70 or fourscore if we're strong enough. And by the way, that passage is found in Psalms chapter 90, and that was written by Moses. It's one of the few Psalms that he did write. And in that Psalm, Psalms 90, he talks about how God has been the dwelling place for all generations. Since the beginning of time, God was the place to hide, and he's everlasting, and he's great, and he's the creator, and he's the rescuer. He gives us salvation. And if you have your Bibles, please turn there. Psalms 90, verse 4 says, "For 1,000 years in your sight are like yesterday when it is past, and like a watch in the night, you carry them away like a flood, and in the morning they are like grass which grows up. In the morning it flourishes and grows up, but in the evening it's cut down and withers." So this is talking about the frailty and the vanity and the quickness of man's life. And Moses is expressing the sadness of human life because even though we have several decades of life, And even if God gave us 1,000 years, to God, it's just like a day. It's like an afternoon. It's like an evening. So our lives they're a vapor, ladies and gentlemen. And people have come and gone since the beginning of time. They've been born, they live their life, and then they passed. And isn't it amazing that every generation that has come and had their moment on the earth, while they're here on the earth, it's their time for a while, and the people who are alive at the time are consumed with their life. They're consumed with the goals and the plans and all of the things that occupy our minds as humans. We make plans. We have goals. We want to have a career and buy a house, have a family, have kids. And God allows us a little moment in time for us to do that. But since the beginning of time, people have come before us and done the same thing, and now they're gone. And isn't it interesting, folks, that if we were to look at a snapshot in time going back 1,000 years of the cities that were around then, or the houses, the possessions, at that moment in time 1,000 years ago, for the people who were alive at that moment in time, their whole life was wrapped up in their little world, their possessions, their things, their house, their families. But here we are 1,000 years later, and those people are gone, and now they're in the afterlife. Their spirits are waiting to be judged by God, or perhaps they're with God right now, hopefully. But those people who have come and gone, nobody really remembers them. Unless they were really, really famous, no one remembers their house. And for the most part, that house is demolished. It's returned to dust. Unless it was a castle or something, but even then, they break down. And that's just going back 1,000 years. If we went back 2,000 years, none of the houses that most of the people lived in at the time are still in existence today. And if we go even further back, 3,000 years, during the time of Alexander the Great, or Persia, the Persian Empire, or Babylon, we go back to those times and it's the same thing. Those people, folks, nobody alive today even gives a thought of who was alive 2,000 years ago. The commoner, because they've come and gone, and like a blade of grass, they sprouted up for a while in the morning, but then by the evening, they withered and they faded away and they were cut down in the evening. So I'm not saying all of this to sound negative, folks. I'm saying this because I'm realizing the older I get, I'm noticing that all of my peers, the friends I went to high school with, when I get on Facebook and I look up some friends that I don't talk to anymore, but when I look at them now, it's amazing that I don't recognize them, because most of the time they're older. They have white hair. Their face has changed. Maybe they have injuries, or they've had to endure diseases. They've had to endure hardship. They've had to endure life. And it shows on their face. It shows in the scars that they have. It shows in their eyes. It shows in the way they walk. It shows in the way that their posture may be more droopy than it used to be. Because most of them are all my age. They're in their late 50s and 60s and even higher. So for those of you who are out there and you're dealing with these things as well, how does that affect us, though? Nathan, why are you saying all that? That's depressing me. I know I'm getting old. You don't have to remind me. And I know that, folks. I know that you know it because you deal with it every day. You deal with it when you wake up, and the hardships that you now have, and the ailments and the maladies and the physical challenges that you have, and the sicknesses that maybe you're enduring, autoimmune or whatever else you might be facing. Maybe you have heart problems or organ problems, or maybe some of your organs aren't even working how they used to, or just regular aging brings its boatload of challenges. And the thing to realize, ladies and gentlemen, as we are coming to the ends of our life, because we are, I mean, let's face it, folks, most of us, if you're my age, if you're 60, most likely you have 5, 10 to 20 years left, if the Lord tarries. That's if he tarries. We just have a handful of years left, all of us. For the fortunate ones that may live past 80, maybe to 90, that's rare. So the majority of you that are listening, since the audience is older in age, and some of you are even older than me, some of you are in your 70s or even higher, we're coming to the final chapters of our lives, folks. We're coming to the final laps of our life. And on top of that challenge, just living as an elderly person or as a senior, which we don't want to talk about. We don't want to admit that, right? We don't want to think about how time has faded, some of the things we took for granted. We don't want to think about that, but it's true, and that's where we are. So, since we are in the last chapters of our life and we have to endure through that, then when we add the challenges of what's going on in this crazy world right now, and folks, you know it, this world's gone crazy. It has gone nuts. And I have been talking about the end times that we are finding ourselves in. I've been talking about this over the last few months and even years, that we're there, that those horsemen are very apparent now. The white horse, the Toxon rode and conquered and is still conquering even now. For those of you that are keeping track of that, the world's moved on since then. And then the war in Ukraine started, which was the red horse. But then the war got old and boring. And so the world moved on from that. And now we're looking at inflation. We're looking at high expensive gas prices. We're looking at food prices going up. We're looking at even supply chain problems where food's hard to get. Distribution has been messed up with food. So a lot of things are in chaos right now. The things we took for granted at the grocery store, we can't find anymore. Baby formula's becoming difficult to find, as well as other things. And as we progress more into the summer, we're going to see that grain is going to become more expensive because of the war in Ukraine. But then on top of that, we have expensive fuel. Gas is past $5 a gallon. Just with that right there, that challenge. Some of you are in limited budgets. You're in retirement, or maybe you get Social Security, and you have your budget all made out, including gas, but now gas has doubled. So what happens there? What do we do? That means that we have to not drive as much, or something else will get sacrificed to offset the lack of money, because now we got to pay extra for gas. So some people are doing that. They're dropping their cable, they're dropping their streaming service, they're dropping their Netflix, they're dropping some of the extra things they reward themselves in life, a coffee or things that make life manageable. People are going to have to do away with them, and they're doing it now. So in the challenge that we have right now, ladies and gentlemen, with this end time madness and craziness, on top of that, we're living in this body that's getting old. And if we were to try to put it into an illustration about how the body gets old, Allison told me that when her dad passed away a year ago, she was there. He died in the bedroom with her mom and her sister and her, and they were with him till his last breath. And she said that when he took his last breath, it was like the face changed and the body deflated a little bit, and you can actually see the spirit leave. You can see the change that happens in the body when our spirit leaves. And then after that, the body just seems like an empty shell. And those of you that have experienced death of loved ones or family members or friends, and you've gone to funerals and you've seen the viewings of the body. And when we see our loved ones or friends in the casket, it doesn't look like them. And the reason for that is because it's not them. That body that we're looking at in the casket, this is what Allison said. She said that it seems like when she was looking at her father, he was just wearing a suit. His spirit left, but he left his suit behind. And so our spirits live inside this organic suit, if we can describe it that way. And it's an organic suit that, no, it doesn't have a zipper in the back, but if we could picture it having a zipper and it opens up and our spirit climbs in, then we zip it up. It's just a suit. Now think about this, folks, because this is true. Our bodies are the house or the tent or the outfit, the suit, the garment that our spirits wear while we live our life on the earth. And that garment that our body is, it's organic, and it starts out with our spirit, a little tiny baby, and the skin is fresh because it's new, and it starts growing, and it still looks good because it's growing. And then finally, when we reach the height that we're going to have, and that usually happens around adolescent, mid-teens. The age varies for different people, but for the most part, it's around 13 to 15, 16, 17. Some males keep growing up into the high teens. But for the most part, we're done growing from mid-teen through high teens or even 20. Our body is done growing. And from that point on, you folks remember how great it felt to be 20 years old? Our body was done growing. And for a few good years, our body, most of us at least, our body was strong. It was spry. It was limber. It healed quickly. It was resilient. We could jump off of high places, off of the roof of a house or off of a car. It was pretty strong, and we could do things like that. I remember myself, I used to climb up walls and scale walls 2 and 3 stories just for fun, climbing girders. And now I look back and I think I must have been crazy. But when I was young, I could do that. I could run upstairs, run down the stairs, jump over the stairs, and so could you. So from the age of around 20 to 25, we get to enjoy the glamour of our organic suit. But then, after around the mid 20s, it starts. The deterioration starts, but it's in slow motion. And even for the remainder of our 20s, we don't notice it as much. But then we hit 30, and that's when I noticed that weight gain came quicker and losing weight was not as easy when I hit 30. And then when I hit 40, I really noticed the same thing. But then I started noticing aches and pains. I noticed joint pain started developing. And then the 50s began and autoimmune illnesses came into my life. I battled lupus, arthritis, things like that. So as my body has aged, I have noticed that it's deteriorating. It's getting rusty. It doesn't move like it once did. And the reason for that is because we live in a suit that is temporary. And that suit reaches its prime around 20 years old. And then for the next, so if it reaches its prime at 20 and we make it to 80, that's 60 years of deterioration. Folks, isn't it amazing? The years get quicker. The days go by faster. The holidays get closer together. The birthdays are closer together. And we can recall winter, and then it seems like spring shows up, but then we'll blink and winter shows up again. And I've noticed that for myself. Allison has noticed it as I get older. Time goes by faster. And that's the way that God programmed it for us. We're vapors, ladies and gentlemen. We're blades of grass. All flesh is grass. And for those of you that may be dealing with some of the challenges of aging, and I'm sure there's a few of you, another challenge that does happen with that is the discouragement of wanting to be healed of ailments that are a part of aging. And I've spoken to some people who are older than me, several decades older, and I was having a conversation with a person once a few years ago, and they said they have been praying and asking God to heal them of the ailments like their heart problems or their arthritis, blood circulation problems, all of that happens when we get older. And they had asked me, they said, why is it that when I pray to God and I ask him to heal me, it doesn't really happen? I still have all this aging pain. Why doesn't God heal? And at the time, I didn't really have an answer because this was a few years ago. But now I understand, folks. And the reason that aging ailments might not be an ailment that the prayer gets answered, because I'm sure there are some of you who have asked God to heal your arthritis or your back pain or whatever it is, aging spots, glaucoma, needing bifocals, whatever it is. Your digestion doesn't work how it's supposed to. Folks, there's so many ailments. But the reason that those things do not go away is because those ailments are a part of the process of the aging of this earthly temple. We live in a cursed body. We live in a cursed world. This world is fallen, and our flesh is corruptible. It goes back to ashes, and we can't stop it. And that's a part of the curse. The curse that Adam and Eve brought to the world, the first Adam, and that curse that he enabled for all of us cannot be undone. When God said in Genesis, and he said, by the sweat of your brow, you will labor all the days of your life. Ladies and gentlemen, that's true. We labor all the days of our life, and there's nothing we can do about it. And in fact, in Psalms 90, if you still have it opened up, it says that. It says in verse 10, it says, the days of our lives are 70 years, and if by reason of strength they are 80 years, or 70, or 80. Yet their boast is only labor and sorrow. In other words, the years of our life are just labor. And then sorrow, because sorrow is a part of life. And sorrow goes along with life. Because we live our life in a shell that's fragile. We live in a body that breaks, that rusts. It succumbs to the elements. It's not bulletproof. So in living our life, we will see, until our time comes, we will watch our friends and family members fall and perish. We watch them die. We watch family members die. We watch parents and loved ones, and at times maybe even children, friends. They perish, and we have sorrow. And that's what we have in this life. So in verse 10, it says, the boast of the years of our life is only labor and sorrow. And when God told Adam, by the sweat of your brow, you will work, that meant labor. That meant every day of the life of a person is filled with labor. And isn't that true, folks? Every day you wake up, and what's the plan for the day? Unless you're independently wealthy, you'll go work. But even if you are wealthy, you still have to work. You have to get up and take a shower. You have to clean the house, clean the room, straighten out things, walk to your car, and there's effort involved there. If you have a flat, there's effort, labor to fix the flat. If you go shopping, there's labor, pushing a cart, getting food, cooking. There's work involved. And I'm talking about some of the easy stuff. Aside from that easy stuff, there's difficult stuff. There's difficult tasks. Because as parents, if you're a parent, father, grandparent, you will be called to help out loved ones or friends in their labors. And you will be informed of sad events and episodes. And then you'll have sorrow. And they will have sorrow. So labor and sorrow is the plight of mankind, folks. And what I was going to say a moment ago, if some of you are battling the ailments and you pray to God and you say, God, heal me of this, and it doesn't seem to happen, and then you feel frustrated and you wonder, why isn't God listening to your prayer? Perhaps it's not that the answer to the prayer is that God will take it away. Perhaps the answer is, with His grace, you will sufficiently be able to endure, because His grace is sufficient for you. What does that mean, though? So while you're in pain and your feet hurt and your joints hurt and it hurts to walk, it hurts to move your fingers, or whatever your ailment might be, while you're in that predicament in the final years of your life, just like I am, when we pray to God and ask Him for help, perhaps the help that He will give us will be comfort or wisdom to help us understand. He will give us understanding or knowledge so that we'll be able to endure. Sometimes the remedy is not only limited to the pain going away. Sometimes the remedy is understanding and accepting it. And by doing that, trusting that God is going to see you through, and trusting that God is going to be there to comfort you and to envelop you and to show you that He still loves you. Because, folks, if our bodies did not get rusty as we aged, and if they didn't start hurting as we age, there might be an attachment for this world that shouldn't be there. Which brings me to another thing. In Psalms 90, it says, and back to verse 10, it says, for the years is labor and sorrow, and it is soon cut off, and then we fly away. It is soon cut off, and we fly away. In other words, we die. So we have labor, we have sorrow, and it goes by pretty quick. And as we get older, it's going by faster, right, folks? Before we know it, ladies and gentlemen, those of you that are listening to me, every one of us is going to have our turn. And at some point in the future, it could be soon or it could be a while. God knows. But at some point, if we are going to perish, if it's destined for us to perish slowly, with an ailment or something, then we will be informed that we have an ailment and we'll slowly perish and then we'll go. I lost some friends already to the plague. I lost my youth pastor when I was a teenager, the youth pastor that he contributed to my discipleship. He perished in the plague. And some other friends that I went to Bible college with, they were fellow ministers, they were colleagues, they perished. And when it happened to them, think about it. What went on in their head? One day you're feeling good, the next day you're not so good, and before you know it, you're in bed a day or two later. But for the people that perished, they deteriorated. It became more and more difficult for them to breathe. They ended up in the hospital, and then they perished. And that's what happened to my minister friends. So if some of us go that way, even up until the end, they were posting on Facebook, pray for me that my lungs clear up. I feel good, but my lungs just aren't doing very good. And I saw the post from my friend. He said that. He said, just pray that my lungs will clear up. And then the next day he was gone. So he didn't even know he was going to go. He thought he was okay. So for some of us, it happens quick. For some others, maybe it's an illness or a disease that's drawn out. And if that's the case, then we have time to process it and say goodbye to our loved ones and try to fix some of the things that we need to fix. Restore relationships, make up with people, and forgive and find forgiveness. That gives the people the time to do that. But if it's quick, if it's like a car wreck or it's a heart attack or even the plague or something quick, we don't have that privilege. So what does that mean? Here's what it is, folks. In Psalms 90, verse 12, it says, teach us to number our days, that we may gain the heart of wisdom. So the lesson as we age, ladies and gentlemen, is to always have in mind and not forget. It should be right at the end of our sleeve. It should be on our hand. It should be at the tip of our tongue. It should be easy to say that Jesus is my Lord. We should be able to reckon, and it is this: we have to be right with God. You need to be right with God, my friend. You need to make sure that there's nothing that can get in the way of him saying, well done. Because that's what you want to hear. You want to hear, well done. You labored, and now enter your rest. Enter into the joy of the Lord. So between now and the time that we take our last breath, my friends, we need to be working toward that. So if some of you are battling discouragement, know this: the things that we're facing right now are temporary. And also, if there are things in your life that you're keeping from God, maybe you need to repent. Maybe, folks, you know what it is. You know what the things are in your life that you need to work on. And if perchance maybe it's something that you don't know how to do it with your own strength, or without a miracle from God, you don't know how it's going to happen. Maybe it's a relationship or something. Then ask God to help you with that. Ask him and say, God, your word says to teach us to number our days so that we can have wisdom. So God, whatever this is in this challenge that I'm facing, give me the wisdom. I need your wisdom, God. I need it from you so that I can reconcile this situation. So ask him, ladies and gentlemen, and he'll do it. And tell him, God, teach me to number my days and help me to understand that life is temporary, so that our eyes can be more on him. They can be more fixed in the city that is coming. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about aging. That's what this is about. This is about aging and enduring and facing the challenges and the labors of life and the sorrows of life, because we can't escape the sorrow. Jesus endured our sorrows as well. He bore our grief and our sorrows. He understands sorrow as well. Jesus wept. He lost his loved one. He lost his father. So he knows earthly pain and earthly sadness. So that sorrow that the Bible tells us is going to be there, Psalms 90, verse 10, the years of our life boast about labor and sorrow. So sorrow is inescapable. Jesus even said this would be the time of sorrow. And in the time of the end, sorrow is going to increase. That's where we are, folks. Instead of being rescued from this earth, because we will get rescued finally when we take our last breath, when we perish, or if the Lord comes and the harvest comes, the resurrection, this body of corruption changing into incorruptible, the rapture, in other words. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, we will face sorrow, we will face pain, but we need to do it with faith, with belief in God, and all of that's going to come from Jesus, ladies and gentlemen. That's where it comes from. So I want to encourage you with that, to seek God and to have him help, have him be the answer. Sometimes when we're in the middle of our chaos, God can take a back seat, and instead the emergency takes over. Folks, we have God, we have Jesus. Jesus died for you and he loves you. And he's only a prayer away, my friends. So please don't lose heart, and please maintain your faith. But know this: God knows your pain. God knows that you have sorrow. God knows you have labor. I know it's not easy, and this old body doesn't react the way it used to, and it's not as strong. It doesn't endure the way it used to, and I understand that. We're all in this together. We are battling the same thing. We live in this body, this organic suit, and it's going to perish and it's going to rust, and no amount of paint or lipstick or rouge is going to stop the aging. Yeah, we can improve it a little bit and, dress it up nice, comb it, put some lotion on it, and do those things. But we're not going to stop the aging, folks. It's going to happen no matter what. And in the pain of our body getting older and rusty, doesn't it make heaven seem closer and more real and more inviting? Doesn't it, folks? Doesn't the thought of no more aching joints and no more, all the stuff, wouldn't it be nice? And folks, it's going to be nice. And someday we're going to be there with Jesus, whether he raptures us or we go through the veil. We're going to be with Jesus, and that pain is going to be gone. So in the remaining days that we have, let's give glory to God, and let's try to live our final years for him. Let's live our final years with a heart of wisdom, because we understand that our days are numbered. We're in the final laps, folks, and this world's becoming crazy. Those horsemen are riding. Famine's coming. War's coming. There's another plague coming. They're talking now about smallpox, and what is that? What are they going to do with that one? Or some crazy hemorrhaging fever some new form of Ebola. There's some crazy, gnarly things, whether they are man-made or they're just made by the devil or nature or the corruption of this world. Whatever the cause is, those things are going to arrive on earth. And we're going to be challenged with those things. So we have pestilence that we're facing. We have war. We have famine. And then we have all the things that go with it. The chaos and the madness and angry people and people that aren't showing love. So my friends, I've been saying that we're in the tribulation, and I know that that's hard for some of you to hear, because some of you say, well, okay, if we're in the tribulation, is it 7 years? How long is it? And I'm not addressing that at the moment. I'm not talking about the 7-year tribulation or the great tribulation. I'm just saying the end of time. The timeline for the beginning opening salvos and the opening credits will then merge into the time period of tribulation. But then I understand that there's some of you that believe it's 7 years, and then there's others who only will address the 3.5, because Revelation 13 says 3.5 years. And so does Daniel. 3.5 years. Time times half a time. 1,260 days. So that's 3.5 years. So however long it is, folks, we're there. It is obvious that this world is mad. And it's obvious that we are entering a time period that's going to be very challenging. So in that regard as well, folks, have faith in God and don't lose your faith. It's going to get challenging. It's going to get scary. It's going to get rough. Folks, we have to maintain our faith in God. And that's what I want to leave you with. Have faith in God, because when Jesus returns, he even said it, will the Son of Man find faith in the earth? But for you, my friend, because your prayer is to God to gain the heart of wisdom and to understand that our days are numbered, you're not going to be caught off guard like that. You're not going to be amongst the ensemble of the unbelieving. You are destined to be in his hand, trusting in him, being pleasing to him, found with fruit. All right, folks? So that's the message I want to leave you with. You can do it. With the power of God, faith in God, you can do it, my friend. You can do it. All right, folks? Well, this was a small sermon that I wanted to leave with you. Allison, she's not feeling good. The allergies in the air, the hay fever in the air is just crazy right now in Idaho. And I've been sneezing all day, and so is she. But she'll be coming soon to address some things that we have been discussing. So please be looking for that. Also, folks, again, remember us in your support. It's still tight, and I know that it's tight for a lot of you as well. I know that the budgets are just capsizing for some of you, but for those of you that can, please remember us. Allison and I have been trying to do some other things to get the bills paid, and we're trying to do some odd jobs here and there. And by the way, for some of you that have wondered, where's Nathan? Well, in the last program, I had said that we're at the end of the month and we don't have enough to pay the bills. So then we hit the end of the month. Some of you guys pitched in, and for those of you that did, I appreciate it. But it was still a very small portion, and I'm sure it's because a lot of you are struggling as well. But because of that, we're trying to also just survive just like you are. So if you don't see me as much on YouTube, it's because I'm out there trying to find odd jobs here and there, and so is Allison, to just pay the bills. So it's tight right now, and folks, I don't like to be in this revolving door, because then it limits my ability to come to you, and that's not good. I know there's some of you that have the belief that, you have a YouTube channel and you're a minister and you ask for an offering. Why don't you just trust in God and go get a job? Okay, the last few weeks, that's what Allison and I were doing. We're trying to hustle ways to make some money, and because I'm doing that, I'm not showing up. So the remedy that some of you guys there is a stinginess in some people's hearts, because there's a animosity to giving, and I don't understand that. But for those of you that have the animosity and you say, well, go have faith in God, well, that's why I'm not showing up, because my faith in God makes me have to go out there and do it, and my time's used up. So that's the trade-off, folks. So folks, support your pastor. If you have a pastor that feeds you spiritual food, there is nothing more valuable than that. What is more valuable than a spiritual leader who understands the Word of God to break open the Scriptures and to serve a portion of bread that brings comfort to your soul? What is more important than that? It's not Netflix, and it's not Starbucks coffee. So if you attend a church, a local church, or you have some preachers, and I'm talking about people who feed your soul, who contribute, then be the arm of faith for God for them. Whether it's this ministry or wherever, don't be one of those tightwads that just wants to complain about preachers needing help. Folks, that's not good, because the formula that is the alternative will mean that the preacher's out working and trying to feed his family. He's not going to have time. He's not going to have time to then study the Bible and bring sermons and all that. There's just so many days of the week, and there's so many hours in the day. And again, if we're up in years and the older we get, the energy levels go away. And when you're working all day, you come home and you're tired. You just want to collapse on the bed. And I have lupus. I have an autoimmune disease, and I only have so many good hours a day in the first place. And by the way, Allison has an autoimmune disease as well, and that's a private matter. So for those of you that understand this, I don't want to belabor it, drag it on, but that's what's been going on, all right, folks? So anyway, if you do see the value, the address is Watchmanscry, P.O. Box 157, Priest River, Idaho 83856, or there's a link below to a PayPal. So folks, just do what you feel led, all right? But aside from that, ladies and gentlemen, give your heart to God. Some of you are not living for God right now, and you have your reasons that you feel are justified. Maybe you're mad at Him, or maybe things didn't go well, or maybe the enemy has lied to you, or maybe some Christians burned you. They hurt you. And that's the other sad thing, folks. Christians do that. They hurt people and turn them off from Christianity. And oh man, that's not good, because Jesus said if anyone makes a child stumble, it'd be better of a millstone. You know that passage, right, folks? So if some of you got burned by other Christians, please don't blame God for it, and don't let yourself suffer eternity because someone burned you. All right, my friend, I know it's not easy, but privately, just talk to Jesus. Talk to Him about your woes. Talk to Him about your problems, and ask Him to forgive you. Because, folks, we're all a mess. We live in this body, and this body gets residue, and it gets caked with the residue of living on this world and of Egypt and Babylon, and it gets on us, and then we have to go clean it. And that's why Jesus is the living water, and He cleanses us. He's the only one that can do it. So give Him a chance, ladies and gentlemen. Give Him a chance. He loves you. All right, my friends? With that, I'm going to go. God bless you. Stay safe. Stay vigilant. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.